Hello and happy new year. Welcome to the Transcendent Truth Media Network podcast. I don't know if this is going to be put on Blood or Bone or where you're going to put this, but it will be on one of our podcasts in the Transcendent Truth Media. Of course, you can find everything there is to know about Transcendent Truth Media at www.transcendenttruthmedia.com, or is it just transcendenttruth.com?
Transcendenttruthmedia.com.
Yeah, transcendenttruthmedia.com. I was right the first time. Why did I second guess myself? But anyway, you can find information about us. You can find our podcasts, all the different podcasts attached to our network. You can find sweet blog posts that we post on a sporadic basis.
Are they as sweet as gummy bears?
No, not as sweet as gummy bears. Gummy bears are the sweetest. But moving on from gummy bears, you can also find ways to support us through either PayPal giving, but there's also the option to buy some sweet merch, of which dear Pastor Connor is currently repping for. I forgot my mug today. Mea culpa maxima. So I do hope you forgive me, dear listeners, for that. And of course, I'm Pastor Roland Weisbrot. And once again, Happy New Year. We're excited to just discuss a few things about New Year in general. How we can celebrate it as Christians and not get caught into the cultural understanding of New Year's. And of course, we also want to talk about what the future is in 2022 for Transcendent Truth Media, because folks, believe me when I say this is only the beginning.
Very good, Pastor Roland. Now, you say mea culpa maxima, but as I have just finished recording my two-part series on the 95 Theses, I must say you are not forgiven for this, and I will have to grant you some kind of ecclesiastical penitence for you to earn your forgiveness. Although this is not a command of God, but a command of the church, which are entirely separate, and that makes total sense because Luther, all of that. And so, so here we are today. Well, no, not here we are today. Here the listener is today, maybe, possibly not. And again, that brings us back to what we were discussing about time in the Christmas episode. But, have you frozen?
We've frozen.
We've frozen.
Let it go. Oh, there we go.
Since it's recording on my computer, that should be fine.
We're good.
We're good. Yeah, so the culture today on New Year's is always going to be talking about what is new, what is changing, what is all of this. So we figured it would be a good time to get together and tell you a little bit about what our plans are. And we have lots of plans, as Pastor Roland said, but this is only the beginning. And that's true. If you're an OG listener, you will know that all of these podcasts used to belong to the Canadian Lutheran Gospel Network, CLGN. And such a media network existed for 1.5 years exactly before Transcendent Truth Media was conglomerated. So in a sense, this is just the beginning, but we've already been running for a time. So anyways, welcome to what year is this? 2022? And
2022, year of our Lord, yes.
Yes, King. And so what are our plans? I don't expect you to know all of them, but let's start talking about some of them.
Well, one of our big plans, of course, is to continue with our different podcasts, starting different series. We're looking at the history of Lutheranism. There's going to be some good series about that. There's going to be lots and more Blood and Bone series covering systematic theology, historical theology, philosophical theology, all the good stuff, the real OG. And of course, there's going to be we're hoping to do a lot of collaborations with people. We're hoping to have lots of special guests to come along and inspire us with their wisdom and insight. So please, if you are a listener and you think, you know what, I would love to chat, reach out and we'd be happy to do some work out in that sense. There's lots of people that we would love to have discussions with. So please reach out. We're happy to do that. Now, I will say, though, we don't pay anyone, and that's on purpose. It's not because we don't have any money, which we don't, but even if we did have money, we don't pay people because of our philosophy that this is all supposed to be free. That is not to diss anyone that makes their money by selling intellectual content, podcast content, whatever. I'm not insulting anyone, but Connor and I just really believe that this should be free. And so we're dedicated for as long as we are running this, that this content will always be free. It will not be littered with ads. It will not be littered. It will not be behind paywalls and stupid things like that. There will be none of that for Transcendent Truth Media as long as we're in charge.
That's right, and we will always be in charge. And and this is not to throw shade on anybody at all, but this is a sense in which why I think this is fine to say, and if not, I can edit it out. But of course, we all know I'm lazy and do as minimal editing as possible. This is one of the reasons why what was Canadian Lutheran Gospel Network has become, I mean, that's still running, right? That's still running, but this has become Transcendent Truth Media, is so that there is more freedom, really, to do whatever really we felt we wanted to, and within this as the kind of one mind, one faith, such thing, this Ephesians kind of thing going on here. Because as Pastor Roland was mentioning, even at the beginning when he said donate money, what do you think that money goes towards? It doesn't go towards our paychecks. We're both pastors. We both have salaries. I assume they pay you, Pastor Roland?
Sometimes.
So, okay, right. Yeah. And so, all of that money, even the merch money, it does not go towards anything. It doesn't even go towards the production quality of this show. All of the equipment we have, we just have it. And so all that money goes towards advertising, and it goes towards things like keeping the website up and such basic costs as that. If there is more money, you can tell us what you want us to do with that. I'm not sure, hold conferences or whatever people are interested in, but basically we believe that all of that money should be used towards basically buying a megaphone to speak and preach the gospel out of. And that all of the things that we're saying, if they're worth saying, are about the gospel, about law and gospel, and all those things, those products, those articles, and maybe we'll get some, if God willing, there will be some books that will be coming out in 2022, should be as free as the gospel in which they proclaim. And I guess that brings us to the first thing that I want to talk about, is that there are books which I have been working on for the past few years that a lot of people, no, I shouldn't say it, some of people who know me are aware of, and those will be being put out in 2022. And the way that we are going to be doing that is through a publishing arm, a small independent publishing arm, of course, publishing digital books for free and print books at construction cost, called New Wittenberg Press. I checked the copyright and everything looks fine for that to go. Please don't steal it before we do, anyways. And of course, there will be new merch items. We only have this one merch line for this one design. I don't know if I can show you the full thing. We only have this so far. So in 2022, we're getting some different merch designs, same way that they've been up before through Bonfire. And we're really happy, as far as I know, if Roland has any kind of qualms, but he hasn't told me. So I think that we're good with that. And so there will be new designs, new colors of designs, black, green, red, and all of that stuff. Very exciting. The 1817 series podcast, whichever it ends up being uploaded in, we're still having some technical difficulties in thinking about where to upload that. That's on unionism and its history and its theology, and then covering also men like Karl Barth and Jürgen Moltmann and such. And even Bonhoeffer will be discussed in that because he did roll in those groups. Yeah, what else? I mean, obviously the normal stuff. So you'll have the Blood and Bone episodes. You'll have the Lutheran Library episodes. You'll be having the sermons that I preach on the Rev. Connor Longafee podcast, as well as my 2 Bible studies per week. So all of that normal stuff, Reformation history, all the things that are already going on. And earlier this morning, I hopped on Instagram Live and I started talking about some of the things happening on the Lutheran Library. I talked about this little book, Living Together as Lutherans. This is an ELCA publication. I talked about our UOJ series with Aegidius Hunius. We've got here these articles on the doctrine of justification from Eldona. We've got Theses Opposed to Huberianism by Aegidius Hunius. We've got a clear explanation of the controversy among the Wittenberg theologians concerning regeneration and election, with a refutation of the arguments that Dr. Samuel Huber has thus far brought into the midst of Dr. Aegidius Hunius, Polycarp Leiser, Solomon Gessner, etc., in the defense of his opinions. That's a good title, isn't it? And so we'll be covering this as well. Of course, we've got that Lutheranism 101 series, which will be put side by side with that Worship Matters series from Fortress Press. We've got, Roland, how do you pronounce this? I've heard it both ways. Adolf Heinecke or Heinecke or this individual, his 4-volume dogmatic from Wells version of Pieper. And we're going to be going through this and Pieper, as well as the, what did they call that? The LCMS thing, the brief statement, and the other things on the doctrine of universal objective justification in that series. So those are the things that I know of. Of course, Pastor Roland was talking about collaborations. And just to reiterate, as we've done a few times before, as far as articles go, we are always open to submissions as long as the content is based and Luther-pilled. And we don't need to have a certain degree. You don't have to have gone to the right seminary or belong to the right synod. Just write something based, because we want to be, that thing that we see is missing is an outlet for people who are not part of the elitist club, whatever that is, school, friend group, or synod, or whatever, right? And so we want to give people an outlet to say what needs to be said, because just as the gospel should be freely administered, so it should also be a free outlet for people to speak that free gospel. Are you frozen there, or are we both frozen? Well, let us wait. Let us wait for Pastor Roland to reply to us.
Are we good?
We're good, as far as I know.
Okay, so I was just saying that, we do indeed want to let the glorious proletariat speak in this age of bourgeoisie, to use those horrible Marxist terms. But anyway, it is true in a sense, not the Marxist stuff, but it is true in a sense that we want people to be able to have a platform. That's what we want to develop here. We want to develop a platform for the proclamation of what is true, what is good, what is beautiful, and all of which, of course, is found in Christ. And what we really need, what we believe we really need is to open up the place where people, regardless of where you come from, if you can write something excellent, or if you can write something that is true, you're more than welcome to submit it, because so often good writing is thrown out or not accepted because you don't have a fancy title or a fancy degree.
Or because it won't make enough money.
Yeah, or because it won't make enough money, or because you're not in the right club. Well, we don't care about money. We don't care about what club you're in. We don't care about your credentials. We don't care about your experience. If you write something worth publishing, we'll publish it. Simple as that. And so that's really our goal here, is to make Transcendent Truth Media. This isn't so much our project as it is a project for the proclamation of that wonderful gospel message. That's really the goal here, folks. It really is. And we will do whatever we can to make that happen, and hopefully not fall into any of the traps that unfortunately we see a lot of other people fall into, where they turn it into money-making schemes, or they turn it into some sort of professional association, whatever that means. No, we want to be deeply rooted in people, in the gospel, in freedom, in every sense of that term, Christian freedom.
Yeah, and that's a lot of the reason for Transcendent Truth Media existing, is that a lot of these things about the gospel, just like if you are someone who is theologically minded, and you're trying to get into Lutheranism, and specifically, of course, we're thinking of those who are coming from, generally speaking, at least, the conservative Reformed tradition tends to be the vast majority of individuals who are coming into the Lutheran Church as converts, as was I. And people there are used to not free. Well, there is actually like an outstanding amount of free Reformed content online that you can get. But beyond just free online Reformed content, even the stuff that's for sale, the prices are marked down so much that like anybody can get into Reformed theology. Anybody can afford to do that. It's not expensive. With Lutheranism, that's not the case. And things have gotten a little better in the last few months in that regard, but not by a whole lot. A lot of it is locked down under these monopolies on certain translations. If you're a Lutheran, you know exactly what I'm talking about. And then they won't give the rights for that book to be published. A lot of it has to do with people wanting to join these elitist clubs rather than to get the message out there. And that might sound like a hit piece against anybody who's part of these things. And, to an extent, I guess it has to be. Because if there is no actual place for an outlet for people to speak who don't have the pedigree, if there is no publishing arm that's putting things out for extremely cheap or for free, then why are we shocked when the vast majority of the culture is Reformed? Why are we shocked when everybody is talking about Arminianism and they're talking about Calvinism or they're Baptists, when we are locking our content under the ground and saying you can only look at what's there if you pay me $60 US, right? Or you can only speak and write unless you have this 4-year degree from this specific seminary in this specific way. And we know there's so many of these seminaries, they're hard to get into. And so there's so much that's gone wrong with Lutheran synods, Lutheran media publishing, Lutheran podcasting, Lutheran books, Lutheran everything. And things have gone a direction that they shouldn't have gone. Our academics are, in large part, they're not doing very well. And so I guess it's, in a way, what we are doing is trying to bring back the Wittenberg spirit and zeal for putting the gospel out there at the expense of our own substance. Elbow grease, if you will.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and I just really want to continue to reinforce that to our listeners, because I think it's really important for us to be clear about what our goals are. It's important for us to be really clear about what our intentions are in the short term and the long term. And we're not going to be the type of people that in 3 years, if things are going really well, we're going to all of a sudden start monetizing everything. Like, please, if anyone tries to ever do that in TTM, point to this podcast, this video, and say, you liar, you said you're not going to do that. And I really do want this to be like a pledge in a sense, and saying, no, we're not going to do that. We're going to let our yeses be yeses and our noes be noes, and say, no, we're not going to be involved with that, because that's not the point. And like Connor said, one of the greatest tragedies of the 20th century was Lutherans at the beginning of the 20th century were very much on the forefront of getting the message out there. We think about Lutheran radio. And then for some reason, we kind of started failing. When the TVA came out, we didn't capitalize on that. When the internet came out, we didn't capitalize on that. When social media came out, I mean, still to this day, a lot of Lutheran social media online is just insufferable. It's just
or
awful.
Not present.
Or not present at all. And you look at some websites for Lutheran churches and even entire synods, and they're awful. They look like they were made by someone in the 1990s that works for like Yahoo or something, or AOL, right? But I mean, this is the problem, and this needs to be fixed. If we want to see Lutheran theology abound again, prosper again, really impact people and lives and ministries and the whole Christian psyche in our countries and around the world, we need to get it out there. We need to proliferate it. And everyone else is doing this. The Roman Catholics have about 100 million media outlets. The Reformed have 100 million media outlets. The Baptists and Evangelicals got all their stuff. Heck, even the Mormons and Jehovah's Witnesses are better at this than we are. And here we are, like Connor said, stuck still doing our radio thing, and locking all of our theology behind expensive books and expensive seminary degrees.
Yeah. Yeah. And I think that covers that. I mean, and just to get into the spirit of, I mean, if you want to talk about a New Year's resolution, in a sense, this is ours. We are resolved to not monetize or put up a paywall here. We are resolved to deliver the gospel in the free manner that it was meant to be delivered in, and that all donations, you are free to make them. We have a donation page, but they are free, and it does not depend on us. Doing what we're doing does not depend on your money. We are not listener supported. We are supported by the Holy Spirit, who has called us to deliver these gifts freely to you. And just on that note, I would like to then tell you that New Year's resolutions are horrible, and they cripple the human mind and spirit, and they break the collective spirit and drive of humanity, and the ability of human beings to really rest and take pleasure in the finished work of Christ. And what I hate hearing is that this is a new year, new me. No, it's not. Same thing, same you, and this is not a new beginning. You're not starting afresh. This is the end. So gird up your loins and walk to the cross and die before it's too late. Do you have anything to say about that, Pastor Roland?
Well, after that, I don't know where there is anything else to say, but you're absolutely right in the sense that many of these New Year resolution things are quite fanciful and quite unrealistic in many ways. And don't get me wrong, like if you want to be like, I want to eat less sugar, I want to eat less candy, like sure, whatever. You want to exercise more, you want to walk the dog more, great, cool, do that. Awesome. You want to play more games? Cool. You want to play less games? Great. But the thing that I would definitely just say and hammer in exactly what Luther was, called you Luther, Connor. Wow, isn't that Freudian slip? My goodness. What Connor was saying, well, oh, does that make me Melanchthon? I hope not. Please no.
Well, no one has ever seen me in a room together with Martin Luther.
That is true. Although I do have a pastor that I think that attends my church that I think is old enough to have been communed by Martin Luther. So I'll ask him. But anyway, joking aside, and bless that man, he served the church faithfully many years. But joking aside, this is exactly right. If you want to make a New Year's resolution, make it to die to yourself and live in Christ.
Yeah.
There's your New Year's resolution.
Yeah. What happens with the New Year's resolution, and this is, I know you're not a huge fan of psychology, Pastor Roland, but this is just very shallow psychology. Basically, what is happening is we have, as a culture, said that the concept of this big celebration, the winter solstice, whatever, and this isn't just with Christmas, but especially with Christmas, especially with the New Year's Eve stuff, is that this is like when they eat the most, when they drink the most, when they party the most, and they get the gifts and they give the gifts and they have a vacation. And this is supposed to be when they are at their most happiest, right? And what happens after this is that they feel like crap because they've been eating the most, drinking the most, partying the most, sleeping the least. And then they feel guilty. They feel gluttonous, they feel gross, they feel fat, they feel drunk, they feel hungover, and they feel overall discontented with life and disenchanted with all that the world has told them that will give them their rest, will give them their peace, will give them their joy. It's not going to be found in trinkets or drinks or parties or food or vacations, and they think it is. And that's why people are making New Year's resolutions, because they have seen that salvation is not of this world. And then they've tasted everything that the world has to offer in Christmas and New Year's Eve. You think of Ecclesiastes. And then they're moving forward to their New Year's resolution. They found what is the one thing that's keeping them from true happiness, and it's that last 10 pounds. Or they found that one thing that's keeping them from happiness, they need to stop playing video games. Or they need to do this, or they need to do that, so on and so forth. So they're saying the reason I'm discontented is because I'm not doing the law, and the solution to true happiness is to do the law. How does that work out?
Well, it doesn't. I can tell you that much, because it's funny. And, just as a personal anecdote, and I don't tend to like using personal anecdotes, but anyway, I've had a lot of times in my life where I've fallen into the same trap, and I've said, well, if I just did this, everything would be better. If I just had this, everything would be better. and you get it, you have it, and then it's like, oh, and you're absolutely right. I think New Year's breeds that sort of thinking and encourages you even. It said, yeah, if you just lost 10 more pounds, if you just ate a few more, healthy snacks, if you just did this a bit more, everything would be swell. And it never is, because you're looking in the wrong place. You're looking away from the cross. You're looking into the world or into yourself for things that nothing else can give you but Jesus. No one else can give you but Jesus. And so at the end of the day, you really do need to just hone it all in, take rest in the fact that God has claimed you as his own. And that is enough. Once again, that does not mean that people shouldn't have different life goals and pursue those life goals. Sure, fine, lose that weight. Sure, fine, get that degree. Sure, fine, play a few video games or don't play any. Whatever. But at the end of the day, if you're looking for purpose or identity or satisfaction in those things, they have become idols, and you're in violation of the first commandment.
Yeah. Yeah, and we see this with seminary students all the time too, don't we? And with Christians all the time. When they talk about, I'll especially with laity and especially with youths, I'll think more about whether I really want to be a Christian later in life when I get to that point. Or with seminary students, they say, I'll kick this one life-destroying sin when I graduate before I become a pastor. No, you won't. And in a sense, that is law to say, no, you won't. And we can see that this law is true with New Year's resolutions. People say, I'm going to read through the Bible cover to cover finally, and then they hit Leviticus, and they don't. But what it also is to say is, to bring you back to that point that Pastor Rowan was talking about, is that this frees you. Like the final death that the law delivers to you is the point in which Christ will raise you from the dead through his resurrection. And it's in that resurrected life that you have freedom to live for the other, right? So you want to lose 10 pounds? Why? You don't have to. Is the reason so that you can be healthier and live better for the sake of your neighbor, to live in happiness and healthiness with your wife and your child, to be a good example for your son? Good. Then you might very well do it. But and the thing seems to be, every time we tend to do something for ourselves, for our own sake, I don't know if you've noticed this, we tend to fail at it, almost as if it's on purpose. And it's not. And I don't want to get too much into the psychology as to why people think that this is, but this is just a scientific fact. When we tend to do things for ourselves, we tend to fail at it. And this is really ironic, because you look at the New Age group, you look at the, what do they call those things, the personal self-coaches or whatever? Yeah, coaching you, leading you where? Down to hell, usually. But
I shouldn't laugh at that, but it's absolutely true.
It is true.
Those self-help coaches are just, they're
right
awful.
Up there with the elf on the shelf. And is the thing is that they're always saying, if you want to kick this issue, this sin, this habit, whatever, you have to do it for yourself. That is advice from hell. Don't ever do that. If you ever want to do anything, whether or not it's because it will work better or not, just don't do anything for yourself. The only thing that you should do is something for another person. And you're going to fail at that too. And that's okay. It's not okay, but it's crucified. And this is really what gets us to the whole point, is that this is not starting afresh. And if it is, that's bad news. What it is it's living in the finished work of Christ's life, death, and resurrection, and in that resurrected reality as we walk toward eternity.
Yeah, and you know what? I really just want to highlight that point that you made as well, that at the end of the day, and as other-centered people, I think it is interesting, because it is almost it is by design that when we're trying to live for ourselves, we burn out, we get sick, things go wrong, all these problems, we fail at it. But when we live for others, it always seems as though we have the energy to do it. I had a really good conversation with this one lady who was talking about, when I serve others, I feel, I feel energized, I feel alive, I feel like I have the energy to do it. But when I'm trying to do the self-care type stuff, it just burns me out and it makes me feel just even lazier and more wallowing in my own pity. And
Yeah.
it's interesting because you see very clearly this is, in a sense, all by design. God has created us to be other-centered. So once again, if you're going to make resolutions, make them for how you're better going to serve your neighbor.
Yeah. Yeah, and on that note, we'll probably end it there. Remember, as I was mentioning in the Christmas episode, this should bring us back to Philippians chapter 2, verses 5 through 11, as Paul begins that. Have this same mind among yourselves. Be as Christ is here. And when it gets to topics like Reformation Day, when it gets to topics like this, instead of going all third use of the law, and this is maybe going to upset some people, go more. Have this mind of Christ in yourself. I'm not saying moral influence theory, but also I am really. Let yourself be an offering to the other. Let yourself be the Christmas gift to the other. And there you will find really rest in what Christ has done for you, and finding what Christ has done for you, then you can go and live for others. And it's really, that's really what you're looking for. That's the only place that you can find fullness, is that it's in gift, receiving and giving. And that's it. That's it. So God bless you all. I hope you have a good 2022, and hope it wasn't as bad as 2020 or 2021, although that's pretty hard to beat, but you never know. Satan is alive and well. So we'll see. All right. Thank you.